In the heart of Abuja, tucked between the diplomatic serenity of Maitama and the entrepreneurial hum of Woods, lived a man who carried success like a whisper. Never loud, never boastful, but always present. His name was Chinedu Ikenna. At just 33, Chinedu had built Ikenna Logic, a fast-growing tech consultancy serving both government agencies and private firms. What began as a laptop and generator dream in his cousin's BQ had blossomed into a sleek, glass-walled office in Jabi. People in the industry called him the gentleman disruptor. Never one for noise, never one for clubs or scandal. His handshake was firm, his smile rare but warm, and his word unshakable. Despite the trappings of wealth, his minimalist duplex in Katamp Extension, the hybrid Lexus, the silent chef who understood he hated overcooked rice, Chinedu's heart longed for something simpler. Companionship. Love. Not the flashy kind that came with filters and hashtags. Not the kind that moved fast and broke things. He wanted something quiet, honest, rooted. He was the kind of man who sent birthday cakes to his primary school teacher. The kind who still visited his late father's grave in Anambra every year, kneeling beside the red earth with eyes full of gratitude and questions. The kind of man who, despite owning 3 registered patents, still took Sunday calls from his mother in Igbo, responding softly, "Yes, Mama, I've eaten. No, I'm not lonely. Not really." But he was, not in a desperate way, not in a tragic way, just open. And one rainy Thursday, that openness met its match, in the form of a woman in a mustard yellow dress. It was supposed to be a quick stop. Chinedu had just wrapped up a pitch presentation at a digital innovation summit in Maitama and reluctantly followed his childhood friend, Toba, into a boutique in Was 2. Toba insisted he needed new cufflinks for a dinner party. Chinedu wasn't particularly interested in shopping. He hated being fussed over, but he agreed. It was raining, and traffic would make movement pointless for at least another hour. That was when he saw her. She was standing near a mirror, arms folded, laughing with one of the store attendants. She wore a mustard yellow dress, simple but striking. Her skin was the color of roasted almonds. Her laugh didn't just echo, it lingered. It was rich, real, like it belonged in a room with no lies. When their eyes met, she smiled first. "Button-downs don't suit men with shoulders like yours," she said without invitation. Then, as though realizing she may have overstepped, she added, "Sorry, I work here. Habit." Her name was Amarachi Alayemi, born to a Yoruba mother and Igbo father, raised in Lagos, educated in Ife, bold, stylish, and full of that unpredictable Lagos energy. She wasn't just beautiful. She knew she was beautiful, but not in a loud way, more in a way that made people stop mid-conversation. When she walked into a room, she helped Chinedu pick a shirt, then another. They talked about books, about Abuja's overpriced shawarma, about Lagos traffic and why fashion retail in Nigeria was harder than most people thought. By the time he was paying, Toba had already stepped outside to take a call, and Chinedu was asking, carefully, if she was free for coffee. She gave him a grin. "I don't do coffee dates." He nodded politely, preparing for the polite decline. "I do umla dates," she added with a wink. And just like that, Amarachi stepped into his world, boldly, unapologetically. 2 weeks later, they met at a small buka near Area 1. No reservations, no paparazzi, just hot yudu, shaky plastic chairs, and easy conversation. He'd expected her to choose a fancy rooftop lounge. But instead, she said, "Rich men are always eating in quiet restaurants with folded napkins. I want to eat in a place where people lick their fingers and don't pretend." He liked that. He liked her. Over time, she called him Mr. Logic when teasing and my piece when sincere. She sent him handwritten notes tucked between his shirts. She listened when he spoke. She was spontaneous, affectionate, curious about his world. He told her about the loss of his father, the imposter syndrome he sometimes felt despite his accolades, and the fear that everyone liked him more for his mind than his heart. And one night, as they sat on the rooftop of his apartment sipping kunu and talking about childhood dreams, he turned to her and said, "Amara, I think I'm falling for you." She smiled, that sunshine smile again, and said, "Took you long enough." To the world, they looked perfect. Instagram posts from quiet weekend getaways, matching Ankara on her birthday, surprise lunch deliveries at her boutique in Jabi. Amarachi's friends called her lucky. Chinidu's colleague said he was glowing. The hashtags followed. Hashtag power couple goals. Hashtag my peace and my style. But behind the filters and laughter, the cracks had begun to show. It started with small comments. Subtle jabs, said half jokingly. "Babe, you're lucky I said yes to you, oh. I had plenty options, but I wanted something stable." Chinidu would laugh, though the word stayed in his chest like undissolved paracetamol. Once, during a brunch with her friends at a hotel in Guarimpa, she introduced him with a smile and said, "Ladies, meet Mr. Logic. He's brilliant, a bit old school, but I'm fixing that. We'll get rid of those ABA shoes very soon." They all laughed. So, did he? But his hand tightened slightly around his fork. Sometimes, when she spoke Yoruba too fast, she'd joke about how he needed language lessons to keep up. Once, after visiting his mother in Enugu, she complained on the flight back, "Babe, your family is nice, Sha, but can we agree that rural life is not my thing? Everything was just too quiet. Even the fufu had no Wi-Fi." Chinidu smiled gently at the time. He loved her sense of humor. But over time, the humor grew teeth. Still, he brushed it off. Because love, as his mother once said, is not about perfection. It's about patience. He told himself it was nothing. Amarachi was a Lagos girl, bold, expressive, and maybe just a little too honest. He chalked it up to cultural difference. She would adjust. She just needed time. When she told him her dream of opening a luxury fashion studio in Lekki, he didn't hesitate. He funded it. Quietly. No social media posts. No ownership tags. Just support. Because he believed in her, not just her ambition. The boutique opened in 6 months. The name was hers. The spotlight was hers. The success, too. And when his parents met her for a formal lunch at Transcorp Hilton, she was everything they hoped for on the surface. Polite, poised, present. But Chinedu noticed how she subtly rolled her eyes when his uncle prayed too long. How she sighed when his mother mentioned their hometown. How she shifted uncomfortably when his niece called him Na Ani. That evening, his mother pulled him aside gently. "My son, Amarachi is beautiful, yes. Confident, yes. But do you think she will ever truly understand your roots?" Chinedu looked away. "Mama, she'll come around." But in his heart, he didn't know. He didn't know that the love he had watered so generously was beginning to bloom into something different. Not roses, but red flags. The wedding was set to be the event of the year. A luxury garden venue in Asokoro. 3 top decorators flown in from Lagos. 2 cakes. 1 gold and white. 1 sculpted in the shape of a bridal gown. Guest list? Exclusive. Politicians, tech CEOs, influencers. 5 outfit changes for the bride. A gospel choir. A saxophonist trending on TikTok. It wasn't just a wedding. It was a production. Amarachi insisted on hosting it in Abuja. Neutral ground, she said. More elegant. Lagos is noisy. Enugu is too village. Chinedu agreed, as he often did. She wanted her moment. He wanted her happy. In the middle of the flurry, tailors racing against time, gift boxes being delivered, vendors asking last-minute questions, Chinedu remained calm. His best man, Toba, teased him. "Omo, you sure say you no day panic? Abi na spiritual composure." Chinedu smiled faintly. "I just want to marry her. That's all." But upstairs at the Grand Chariot Hotel in Guzape, something else was happening. Mama Ikenna, Chinedu's mother, had been going back and forth between the kitchen and the bridal suite, checking on logistics, making sure Amarachi's family had everything they needed. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Amarachi smiled. She posed for pictures. She laughed with her bridesmaids. But Mama Ikenna had lived long enough to know when a woman's smile was real and when it was a mask. "Amarachi," she asked gently at one point, placing a soft hand on the bride's shoulder. You don't seem excited." "Oh, mummy," Amarachi said with a bright laugh. "I'm just tired. All these preparations." But the answer felt rehearsed, hollow. Later that evening, Chinidu came upstairs with a tray of fresh fruit and a bottle of Zobo. He tapped on the door lightly. It wasn't fully shut. As he raised his hand to knock, he heard laughter, Amarachi and two of her friends. "Babe, you finally bagged this tech money," one of them giggled. "Please leave me, Jor," Amarachi said, laughing. Another friend chimed in. "From boutique babe to Lecky luxury wife, I tap into this miracle, oh." Chinidu smiled faintly outside. "Women talk," he told himself. "But then, a beg, make I just enjoy this money small," Amarachi said, her voice loud and sharp. "1 year max. I go arrange my boutique, well, bounce and go meet Dio. I didn't come to this world to suffer." The laughter that followed hit Chinidu like a gust of wind. His chest tightened. "Wait, though," one of the girls said. "The same one that cheated?" "He has changed," Amarachi replied confidently. "I've always loved him. This wedding is just stepping stone things." Chinidu froze, one hand on the wall to steady himself. His breath caught, his stomach turned. "And that family," Amarachi's voice continued. "Ugh, all that tradition, this culture that. Please, let me just get the shop, Baiko. I'm not doing village life with anybody." He took a step back, then another. Then he turned and walked away quietly, down the stairs, past the guests arriving in Gelly and gold, past the choir warming up outside the church gate. He found a quiet spot behind the flower van, and he stood there, hands trembling, trying to make sense of what he just heard. The woman he loved, the woman he trusted, was laughing about his family, mocking his culture, using his love as leverage. His phone buzzed. "Toba, guy, where you day? It's almost time." Chinidu answered with a whisper. "I heard everything." "Wait, what?" "She doesn't love me. She's still in love with someone else. She called my family bush people, Toba. She's marrying me for the money." There was silence. Then, "Stay there. I'm coming." Chinidu's face was pale, his eyes red. But one thing became clear in his mind. He would not walk into that church a fool. The sun rose bright over Asakoro, almost mocking in its perfection. The garden venue sparkled. Fresh white orchids lined the gold-accented aisle. Guests shimmered in lace and chiffon. Photographers flitted about like flies on honey, capturing everything. Nothing looked out of place, except Chinidu. He stood near the altar in a custom black tuxedo, hands clasped loosely, face calm, but his eyes haunted. Toba stood to the side, watching. Only he, Mama Ikenna, and Papa Ikenna knew what was about to happen. A soft love song floated from the choir. The guests hushed, and then Amarachi appeared, draped in diamonds, veil cascading down her back. A walking dream. People gasped. Phones flashed. Someone whispered, "Now money day talk." She glided down the aisle like a queen, but when she reached Chinidu, her smile faltered. He didn't touch her hand. Not really. She leaned closer and whispered, "Why so stiff, my piece?" Chinidu didn't answer. He just stared ahead. The officiating pastor began with a booming smile. "Today, we celebrate not just love, but union of destiny and dignity." He opened his Bible. The crowd clapped, but before he could speak further, Chinidu raised a hand. "Excuse me," he said, calm and clear. The pastor paused. "Is everything all right, sir? I believe there's something we must all hear before we go on." Whispers erupted. Heads turned. Phones lowered. Amarachi's smile tightened. Chinidu reached into his pocket and placed a small black speaker on the pulpit. Then he pressed play. At first, it was laughter. Then came her voice, clear, unmistakable. "A beg. Make I just enjoy this money small. 1 year max. I go arrange my boutique, well, bounce, and go meet Dio." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People froze. Some guests stopped fanning themselves. A woman in front dropped her purse. The audio continued. "That family? Ugh. All that tradition, this culture that. Please, Let me just get the shop, Baiko. I'm not doing village life with anybody. Then silence. Chinedu looked at her. Her mouth trembled. David, she started, her voice cracking. Don't, he said quietly. Then he turned to the crowd. I wanted this to be real. I built my life with the hope of finding someone who saw me, not just my name or my earnings or my lineage, but me. He held up the torn wedding contract. But today, I walk away not in anger, but in truth. He let the pieces fall gently to floor. I will not be bound to someone who wears love like costume. I deserve peace. My family deserves respect. The silence was heavier than thunder. Chinedu stepped back, then turned, and walked down the aisle, alone. Guests parted. Some bowed their heads. Others simply stared. Amarachi stood frozen, bouquet clutched like a weapon, her world unraveling before her. No one moved to comfort her. Not her bridesmaids, not her family, not even the girls who had laughed with her. Toba joined Chinedu at the gate. Mama and Papa Ikenna followed behind. No words, no drama, just dignity. The music didn't play. The flowers no longer mattered. The cake will remain untouched. And at the altar stood a woman in white, stunning, adored, and completely alone. Outside, the Abuja sky had turned a pale gold, but for Amarachi, the light had never felt so harsh. She stood at the altar, surrounded by glittering decor, trembling petals, and vacant stares. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for comfort, for explanation, for someone, anyone, but there was no one. Tola and Bisola, her loudest cheerleaders just hours ago, had vanished. Her makeup artist avoided her eyes as she quietly packed up. The influencers who once hyped her as style queen were already whispering into their phones. And her parents? Her mother sat down, head bowed. Her father, Chief Alayemi, rose stiffly, adjusted his ibada, and without a word walked out of the church. The silence was humiliating. Not loud, not chaotic, just empty. Amarachi dropped her bouquet without noticing. The sound of it hitting the tiles echoed louder than applause. In another part of Abuja, at his cousin's quiet home in Gwarimpa, Chinedu sat on a wooden bench in the back garden. Toba was with him. His mother brought him a cup of hot ginger tea. His father didn't say much. He didn't have to. His presence was enough. You did well, Papa Ikenna finally said, sitting beside him. Chinedu didn't speak. He was drained, but not broken. You didn't shout. You didn't insult. You just told the truth. Mama Ikenna added, rubbing his back gently. He nodded once. I feel hollow. You feel saved, his father corrected. You just don't recognize it yet. Back at the Alayemi residence, Amarachi sat on the edge of her bed. The wedding dress pulled around her like defeat. The glitter on her veil felt like mockery now. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Screenshots, recordings, comments. Now money she see, not love. This is what happens when you fake soft life. Chinedu handled it like a true king. Hashtag Elegance and Ashes was trending. She tried to call him. Blocked. She tried to message him on WhatsApp. No profile picture. No last seen. Instagram? Gone. He had wiped her from his life completely. No rant. No statement. No revenge tweet. Just silence. And somehow, that silence was the loudest punishment of all. Even her father's long-anticipated business partnership with Ikenna Logic had been revoked. The email came that afternoon. Due to internal restructuring and recent developments, the board has decided not to move forward with the engagement at this time. Amarachi had cost her family more than a wedding. She had cost them their dignity. And now, in her once influential world, she was a ghost in glitter. Not hated, not cursed, just avoided. For the first time, she understood what it meant to feel poor. Not in money, in value. 6 months later, Abuja had moved on. The wedding scandal had stopped trending. Blogs found new scandals. Influencers moved on to new hashtags. But Chinedu Ikenna, he wasn't chasing peace anymore. He had found it. He had taken a step back from Ikenna Logic, delegating leadership to his senior partners. He packed a modest duffel and left for a quieter life. In Nsukka, his father's hometown, not for retreat, for rebuilding. He rented a quiet bungalow tucked behind a row of mango trees. No high fences, no black SUVs, just birdsong in the morning and silence at night. The kind of silence that didn't remind him of loss, but invited reflection. Most days, he volunteered at a small U-Hub, the Mines Park Center, a local initiative helping rural teens learn basic coding and digital skills. He donated laptops, rewired their old server room, and more importantly, he listened. That's where he met Isioma Ada. She wasn't glamorous. She didn't wear luxury labels or long nails. She was simple, clear-eyed cocoa tone, with a voice like cool water. She wore round glasses and always had chalk dust on her fingers from the community school where she taught math part-time. Their first interaction was short. "Good afternoon, sir." "No, sir, please," he replied. She smiled. "All right, Mr. Logic." He raised a brow. "You know me?" "Google is free," she said with a wink, then returned to marking exercise books. They didn't click instantly. They unfolded like carefully wrapped truth. Over weeks, they shared lunches under mango trees. He helped her fix a projector. She lent him a collection of African poetry. They argued about Soyinka versus Achebe. They didn't follow each other on Instagram. There were no selfies, no soft life pressure, just presence. For the first time, Chinidu didn't feel like a prize to be won. He felt like a person, seen, understood. One evening, Isioma said something that stayed with him. People think love is how fast your heart races, but maybe it's about how slow it rests around someone. Chinidu looked at her, not dressed up, not pretending, just real. And for the first time since the wedding that wasn't, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Safe. He told his parents about her eventually. His mother was quiet. His father asked softly, "She's not from the same tribe?" "No," Chinidu said. "She's from here." Another pause. Then Papa Ikenna nodded. "Does she respect who you are?" "She sees me more than most people ever have." That was all that mattered. There was no rush, no trending hashtags, no elaborate proposal yet, just peace. She brought him roasted corn and cashew nuts. He helped her younger brother apply for a student tech program. She read to him from Chinua Achebe by candlelight. He listened, not with his ears, but with his healed heart. One Sunday evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the hills, Isioma looked at him gently and said, "You never talk about your past." "Not really." Chinidu nodded. "Because it taught me enough. I don't need to keep living in it." She smiled. "Good. I like the version of you that's here now." He looked at her, sunlight caught in her lashes. "So do I?" And so, Chinidu learned something no algorithm ever taught him, that sometimes heartbreak doesn't end a love story.